So we use this, I think, Zach, in our previous conversation. So what this metaphor represents is something like, logos. I used logos to define it. And the idea here is that the meaning of the word is not contained in the utterance of the word. Right? The meaning of the word is contained in its connection, and we can say like to the sacred, to the transcendent, to the creative principle, to something that's beyond ourselves, to the seen, to consciousness. Like I don't need to, the whole point is like I can invoke the Taoist point and say that up there is precisely the thing that isn't named. It's the thing that gives meaning to the things that are named. And there's something about connectedness, which Forrest again called continuity. Right? I'm actually connected in general, like mode 2, right? Not egoic mode, but mode 2. All right. So if I'm connected, I'm now engaged in logos. Okay. And there's something about that logos that is all about like where we are, like how you do this thing, how you do communication. If you and I are both engaged in logos, there's a process where we have to sort of like find the point where we're, there it is. And then we're there. And now we're in a shared scene. And then there's this, right? And the way I term that is this is logo. And I'm not referring to like Nike's logo, right? There's something about the discontinuity, the disconnectedness. But mode 1 doesn't have can't distinguish. Right? Again, an AI chatbot operates exclusively in logo, right? And there's things that can be done in terms of Markov babbling and whatever, like there's just statistical inference, but specifically there's 2 elements to this. One element is, hold on, let me shift back a little bit. God, there's actually a bajillion elements. Let me see if I can get this just right so it's clear. This move happens for a couple of different reasons. One reason is very natural, and that is the scene has changed. Right? The context in which we're operating has gotten more intense, more complex than our collective capacity to hold the integrity of continuity. So, but particularly remember, the sphere of peace increases our innovative capacity, which means it changes our context. By virtue of changing our context, it actually begins to it overwhelms our capacity to navigate that context in the base state of peace. And so somebody comes with a sword, and the potential possibilities of sword are so much stronger than the potential possibilities of fist that we have this sort of, we have a break. It's just, we can't quite hold peace with this new, we haven't integrated that into our capacity. Our culture has not yet integrated this new competence. Think about the introduction of the nuclear bomb, right? The nuclear bomb brought a deep conscious awareness of the fact that up until that point, the standards of culture of humanity couldn't manage that level of destructive power. Right? For 2 or 3 decades, humanity was scared out of its mind that we were just going to kill everything because we're like, dude, we don't know how to deal with that. Like we just fucking fought World War II. We had concentration camps. Like we are not prepared to deal with this level of power. We're fucked. Somehow we managed to like, shit, and integrate it through, right? And that was like the beautiful genius of that mid-century period, which by the way, so that's all right. So that creates a new, like an integrative process of a new expansion of competence in the field of peace in the context of the complexity of the environment. Logos comes back in. Now we're living in a connected culture. Our culture is alive, right? There is a scene that human beings are operating in. The gaggle is there, and we're searching the environment. And again, right? And we create new stuff, and we may accidentally pop this up, right? We need to become unconscious of that and not do that, right? That's the thing. You get really, really good at holding this first and make sure we don't accidentally, recklessly accelerate past our capacity to do that. Like that's job 1, right? 2 other ways that it happens. One is at a micro level. Like at a micro level, I not being aware of what's happening, say something that happens to hit Gregg in a location of his capacity to come in good faith that is unconsciously a trigger. He becomes triggered, we pop out of the field. But we're still in the same room. Right? So if we don't notice that we've just popped out of the field, then we're actually engaging in a bad faith relationship, but not aware of it. And that can obviously create all kinds of stuff.
Every once in a while, that happens with couples.
On occasion. I've heard rumors.
I've seen that as a marriage therapist. Believe it or not, I know it's going to surprise everybody.
And of course, as you say, when that happens, you get this very confusing thing, right? This is the Moloch event occurring in that dynamic.
Mhm.
We can both agree that this is not a place where we want to be, and yet our behaviors are making it worse. Why?
Totally.
Well, in point of fact, we're doing this, meaning we're now using language as systems of justification and dominance hierarchies to establish control over the event and execute on a variety of different, very basic, primate things, and each one of which it decreases the capacity to actually reconnect, right? So there's like the things that are happening at the microstructure and the things that are happening at the macrostructure to maintain the integrity of the field of logos. Yeah.
Total.
Okay. The third, the sociopath problem. The third is there's something about a whole strategy that is about optimizing in this location. Okay. So there's a, and let's just bring us to this moment. So in many ways, the threat of nuclear holocaust gave rise to a forced evolution in consciousness on the part of the world, and particularly in the part of the West. Okay. We got to learn how to wage peace like a lot better than we used to. Let's create the UN. Let's create like the Peace Corps. Let's do whatever we got to do, right, to make this not happen. And by the way, not necessarily all good. Let's create the RAND Corporation, the CIA too. Like, let's just well, not necessarily bad, but the point is not, we call it sunshines and rainbows. Like, we got to solve this problem. Okay, so something happened, and this huge expansion occurred. One of the things that happens is, hold on, let me see if I can figure out how to say this right. It's like that culture, particularly to mode 1, if I'm in the mode of dominance hierarchy, I begin to basically eat and consume in this space.
Okay.
I begin to lose track of this because I'm not really participating in this anymore. Like what average school kid, think about just being in school. The whole process of being in school is to literally do that. Educational system is that. That is all it is. It's like, hey, don't create shit. Learn how to run the machinery these fucking guys developed well. Right? So there's an optimization algorithm that is implicit in any institutional form. All institutional forms implicitly are optimizing away from the wholeness of human and towards some particular competence in an increasingly rococo cultural structure.
Yep.
Right? And what happens, of course, is that my local incentive structures are, and this I'm reiterating the notion that we've developed a machine that is designed to say, be a sociopath. Our local incentive structures, our local context become a better and better cog in this machine, and the machine becomes taken as reality. Baudrillard, if you aren't familiar with Baudrillard, this is the descent into the simulation. Right? So this happening in small moments constantly through your life, every transaction with money, right? Every interaction with the DMV does that. Right? It just severs that, and more reinforces how to build optimization strategies in your own egoic structure, which begins to create this, this forgetting. Like, you forget mode 2. Yep. And you just start looking for, how do I win, right? How do I navigate this hazardous environment? And culture begins to look like a niche in and of itself, as opposed to a methodology for producing abundance in the context of nature. Yeah. Yep. Now, when culture is a niche in and of itself, we're right back in Girard land. Right? The point is, culture is the thing that allowed us to move out of Girard land in the context of nature. But when culture becomes a niche in and of itself, there is no thing above culture that allows us to once again escape from Girard land. Right? So that's the challenge, right? But the point is, we can do that. Right? We can restore that and get back into that location. And right. So there's a whole lot there, but this distinction between logos and logo, right, to notice, am I speaking from a place of connectivity, or am I merely manipulating signs in what is effectively a sociopathic grift? Right. And is that happening? You see this. I mean, the evolution of social media has been an enormous training ground for humans to participate in there is nothing but iterations in sociopathic grift.